Hello everyone, and thanks for joining me today. I'm working on my Astrology Cat, which is a Heaven and Earth design stitch along. And I've gotten really far. I've done quite a lot. I'm now at 43.19%, so I've actually got quite a lot done since my last video. In my last video, I think I was showing you my full page finish. And then I headed on to do the second page. So yeah, all things considered, I think I've done pretty well. So I have been consistently working at 200 stitches a day, approximately. I do probably about, say, between 190 and up to even 300 stitches, which is quite a lot. But I don't think I've ever gone below about 190, because if I've actually got to 190, I start to think, well, what's the point in stopping here? It doesn't take me any more time to do another 10 stitches and hit the 200. So it wouldn't be a common thing that I would go sort of below 200 if I was that far ahead, like up to about 200 stitches. But yeah, it's because all these stitches really add up at the end of the day. So it's really going well. And I'm doing 1/1 full cross on 22 count hard danger. So there's all the stats, I think. I haven't done any stitching today, but it's only, what time is it? It's midday and the sun is shining. I will be heading out after this for a little while, but I've only just really sat down to get started on this stitch with me. I'm so pleased that the weather has improved, because we've had those awful winds, gusty winds again, and they never really help me to feel very comfortable. Not so much that it affects me when I'm at home, but the sound of it rumbling through the walls and down the chimney, and because we happen to be on the top floor of a building, yeah, the winds can get pretty crazy and very dramatic sounding. Sometimes it does feel like the roof is going to blow off, but obviously it hasn't, and it doesn't. But you do get that moment where your skin crawls and you think, oh my God, this is a bit too noisy for my comfort. Anyway, yeah, today is good. Today there is some sun. It is probably really cold still, but that's okay as long as the bright light is there. We all need a little bit of bright light every so often. That's one of the things that I found living in Scotland that there's been a huge reduction of. If you were to compare living in the Mediterranean, which I did, to living here, the amount of sunlight you get is drastically reduced, and it does affect my mood. It does affect my mood. I knew that would probably happen. Okay, how many stitches am I doing here? Because I'm not even counting. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2 more. It does affect my mood, and I was aware of that when I came here, that could be the case. So I had to make sure that when the days were bright, that I was going to get out and about a lot more. But I've also found that since I've been stitching and using like this artificial lighting, I'm not sure if it's the kind of lighting that makes any difference, but the fact that you're in a brighter spot might actually help a little bit, rather than being in a really dark area, really dark room all the time. I'm going to go for the 10 by 10 here, because I've got a thread over here that I can fill in the next square. So that's where we're going. So days like today, I just grab them with both hands and I just get going. I just have to get outside and take advantage of that little bit of sunshine, even if it's a walk, a coffee, a trip to the park. I rarely go to the shopping centres anymore because I think, like most people, I buy most of my stuff that I need online. Even clothing I find easier to buy online because I know exactly what I'm getting, and I don't have to queue up to pay for things, and I don't tire myself going around the shopping centre. Having said that, I still like going to the large shopping retail park every so often with my family, because we kind of make a day out for it. We go to the retail park, and it's not just shopping, it's eating, it's sitting at cafes. There's a cinema there, there's like everything in the one complex. So it's really like a day trip, and that can be nice. Oh, don't start getting funny little... See, when you pull a little thread like that, maybe I did it a bit too much there, you can actually get rid of some of those knots. So in my last stitching video, which was my floss tube update, I was really, really happy to have got so much stitching done this month. I didn't feel like I'd made a huge effort. It just sort of felt like a natural progression. It felt like I had just naturally gotten all those stitches done. It didn't feel like I'd forced myself in any way, even though I had set goals for the first time in ages, because I've always been scared of doing goals, because I feel like doing goals will just lead me down the path of guilt and pressure and stress. So I've always kind of avoided them as far as I can, thinking that if I just sail along aimlessly, just doing my stitching every day, as and when I feel like it, doing whichever pattern I feel like, that things would just get done anyway, and I would be, at liberty to have the freedom to just pick and choose. Well, that's all well and good, all things being said. But sometimes you do feel like you are just meandering along and you haven't got any sense of direction. It's like, well, I don't know how many stitches to do. I don't know whether to pick this one up or that one up. Sometimes it can lead you into a bit of confusion as well. And so, yeah, having some concrete goals actually can inspire you to stitch also things that you were not planning. Oh, I don't know if you can hear the wind rumbling through the room there. So it's sunny and windy. Okay. Well, we can't have everything, right? So I think you might find that the goals might even inspire you to pick up projects that you ordinarily wouldn't think of picking up and working on. Although that hasn't really been my case, because I've been so, for all intents and purposes, I've been so stuck and blinkered into wanting to finish, well, not finish, but wanting to get progress on my HAEDs, because I am such a full coverage stitcher. I really don't enjoy little things that much. So I always gravitate mainly to the big charts, not the supersized now. I have to say, I haven't done a supersized max color, and I probably will never do a supersized max color. It just isn't for me. It's just far too adventurous, and I just feel like I would never see an end in sight or something like that. It would just, make me feel very daunted. But I have like the two large charts, which are Sad Fairy and Riverwalk Charm. They're my two largest charts. And I just, keep going with them here and there. And I found it nice to sort of sit down at the beginning of this year and actually make some goals. Even if they get broken, doesn't matter. I've tried to convince myself that really doesn't matter, but it's nice to have some idea where you're going to be, at the end of the year. So I figured out that with these goals that I'd prepared, I could work on this one and have it finished by the end of the year. I could also get my Riverwalk charm to 50% by the end of the year. And if I'm lucky, I could get Sad Fairy to 50% by the end of the year. Although the two of them are around 40%. They're both at more or less the same percentage. So getting them both to 50%, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot, actually. I'd have to do 3,000 stitches a month to get my Riverwalk charm to 50% at the end of the year, and with Sad Fairy, slightly less amount of stitches, but even so, a considerable amount each month. But it's doable. It's doable. That's if I'm not completely distracted by doing other things like knitting and crochet and stuff like that. So they do factor into the equation. Yes, I'm just, basically chatting here, just talking about the plans and stuff and the goals that I made. So there was that. And then I also, as my focus piece, of course, is Home for the Holidays by Thomas Kincaid. And that one is definitely something I was planning to finish. Well, I was hoping I'd get it finished last year, but that didn't happen. But that's okay. I definitely will get it finished this year, but I was hoping sooner rather than later. So I was hoping in the next 6 months I could get it finished. But you know what? There's only 15,000, less than 15,000 now. There's 13,000 stitches left on my Home for the Holidays. It's nothing really. It's like bite-sized amount. But I could probably do all that in a few weeks if it wasn't for the fact that I'm doing this one and, still sort of working on the other ones. But that's okay, because I'm slowly getting there with everything that I want to do. And if I don't happen to pick up something one day or 1 week, it's fine. I'm totally fine with that. It's not like it's my job and that I'm going to get fired or anything like that. So it's just, I call it all guidelines, guide stitching goals. That for me makes more sense. Oh, a little bit tight here to get my threads with the camera in the middle. So let's talk about this is going to be funny. Let's talk about something I was actually talking about in my video, my last video, to do with a chart which I fell in love with. It swept me off my feet like some handsome guy. Just that kind of sensation. Well, maybe not quite, but and I was talking about how I was going to plan to start that chart in 2025. Then we were all chatting about it in my Discord community, and everybody was enabling me all day. Actually, that's not true. I just made that bit up. Trying to find, blaming other people. Nobody enabled me. However, there's no difficulty in enabling myself, to be honest. I can enable myself in 5 minutes flat. But it was really funny because I was talking about starting this chart called Happy Village, by the way. Happy Village by, I think it's Irina Orlov or something is the artist, and it's the Heaven and Earth design. Again, because I seem to be fascinated with continuously choosing Heaven and Earth designs. And we were talking about the whole 2025 start, and then other people joined in and said, I love this chart. I've downloaded this chart. I would like to start this chart as well. But a couple of them said that they would start the chart before 2025. And I thought, oh no, that means I have to wait a whole year. That did not sound good to me. So I was going on about, I'll have finished this one, and I'll have finished my Thomas Kincaid, and then I'll be all prepared with my flosses and everything, and I can start this happy village. And I was all going to bed thinking, this is a fantastic plan. I love this plan. This plan is going to work so great. It's fantastic. The next morning, I got up and started ordering flosses. I didn't even know why that happened. It just happened. I just woke up and I went straight onto the computer and started ordering flosses for this happy village. And I thought, well, there's no harm, you know, in being prepared. Come on now. I mean, how many of us have kitted up something and not started it for like a year? There's no harm having the flosses and having the fabric and just putting it into a cupboard. You know, when the time arrives, you'll think, yay, I've already done that. I don't need to do that now. This just gets better and better as we go along. So then I tried to convince myself, as you do, that that was okay. That was fine, fantastic. Okay, I'm here, I'm doing it. I don't know why. Something must have happened in my sleep. Some little cog or switch in my brain just flicked. And I'm here ordering flosses, which I hadn't planned to do until September, at least. I'm just laughing at myself. Sorry, just can't help it. And then the next minute, the fabric was on its way. And I was still saying, you know what? I'm going to really look forward to this 2025 start. And then I was embarrassed because everything came and I started kitting it all up. And guess what? I started putting in the first few stitches. And I thought, well, you know, there's no harm in testing to see how it's going to look on the fabric. I can do a few stitches, like a line of stitches, to see how they look. And then I can put it away and I can bring it out in 2025. This just sorry story was going on in my head the whole time for the last week. And then I just laughed, and I laughed at myself and said, you know what, girl, you just are fooling yourself so bad. Like, you've just so been caught up in this craziness that seems to be like a new start disease almost, or a plague. It's like coronavirus in stitching form. It just spreads so rapidly. And before you know it, you're kitted up and you've got everything into your stitching apparatus, into your box, and you've got all your flosses organized, and you're still trying to convince yourself that, you know, you're just preparing, you're only kitting up. There's nothing wrong with that, of course. And now it's part of my rotation. Can you believe it? It is part of my rotation. We haven't even got past the second, like, we barely got past January. I think I threw in the first stitch on the first or second of February. So that, and then I just howled with laughter, and I felt like, I don't know, I kind of felt like there's something wrong with you, but it's okay. Everybody else does it too, so I must be very normal. Let's just have fun here. So anyway, yeah, seriously, I just laughed a lot. And then I just thought, well, do you know what? It really spoke to me. I must have been dying to get started on it. So I put in my first few stitches, and I was so happy I was skipping around the room, to be honest. I can't believe something like that. Putting a first few line of stitches can make you so happy that you skip around a room. I mean, it's like winning the lottery, isn't it? But it's crazy. So yeah, there's my full up honest account of how that came about. So Happy Village is in there. And now to say how I'm going to fit it in, I have no idea. I have no idea where it's going in my rotation, because I've already planned for the year. I've got this one, and I've got the Home for the Holidays, and I'm going to pick out, do 3,000 a month on 3,000 a month on Home for the Holidays. I think it was 2,000 a month for Riverwalk Charm, and then this one. And anything else, if I had time, I would, you know, as and when. But to be fair, I got a lot more than my goal amounts last month. So there's obviously room in my life to squeeze something else in. But to be fair, I have put aside some other whips because I thought I'd get to them, you know, in the future, another day, another year, another decade. But I think what happens is once you see something and it really calls to you, it's like it's like the wolves with the full moon. They just all gather to the top of the mountain and howl because they're just so drawn, they can't help it. And that's where they stay, you know, exposed and vulnerable. They don't even know why they're there, but they're just there. And that's what happens with the new stars, that you really cannot avoid it. And I've tried to even think about this in a more psychological way, and I just can't. I just think, well, do you know what? Just go with the flow. Wherever the stitch life takes you, just go with the flow. Because at the end of the day, you're just going to go there anyway. And if you're not, you're going to be miserable as hell. So why not just do whatever your heart is telling you? And I think a few people said that when I was saying, shall I do this chart or shall I do that chart? Because I was having a few moments between whether I should start the Sewing Lady chart, which is the freebie that Heaven and Earth Designs gave us in our group. So I was having a moment of whether I would do that one or whether I would do the Happy Village. I think Happy Village just topped it for now. So it wasn't even that difficult, not really that difficult to make that decision. But it's just, I find it just so funny, really. It's funny because I've seen other people doing the same. I've seen other people on flosstube saying, I'm going to start this chart. I have it kitted up. I intend to start it, I don't know, in 3 months' time. And then in the next video, they're already showing this new start. So it's definitely not something that I'm the only one that suffers from. Other people have that same attack of startitis. Is that what you call it? However, having said that, to be fair, I don't do a lot of new starts. I'm not and I think the main reason for that is because I like to see progress on most of the things I'm happy with working on, but not just happy with seeing the progress. I also don't enjoy the kitting up that much. So sorting out the threads and everything, I find a bit tedious. And for that very reason, I don't do new starts all the time because it would just drive me crazy to have to keep sorting out all the different flosses and everything. I would just find it too tedious. It's like going back to my secretarial days and doing all the filing in the filing cabinets. And I'd be like, oh, this is never ending. And it's actually a big job to go finding 90 flosses. Even if you have a master set and you have them on your floss drops or whatever it is, I don't keep them like that. I keep things in bags, keep all my skeins in my cupboards, and even though I've got a list of everything I have, so I can look at my list and say how many I've got of each skein, and this is like a spreadsheet that I worked out ages ago. I still have to keep, you know, making notes of the ones I don't have, reordering, all that stuff. It takes time and effort. It kind of literally exhausts me. So I could not do that every day. And when I heard that people were doing something like 25 starts for 25 days or something like that, it's probably not exactly what it was. I was literally floored. I thought, oh my God, I could not start 25 things in over 25 days or anything like that. That would just, I would be wiped out after day 4. You'd have to peel me off the floor. So yeah, I like to take my time with things as well. So if I'm intending to start something, I'm really careful, and I like to take at least a week organizing, planning, that kind of thing, so that I don't lose the excitement of the build up too quickly, because that excitement that you have for a new start is pretty much not as strong once you've started, because once you've started, it's not a new start anymore. And that build-up is the most exciting part. So I try to extend it for as long as I can, but obviously I could not extend it for an entire year. But to be, the other side of the coin is, I said to my husband, and I explained all of it to him about wanting to start it or kitting it up, and was I crazy and blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, if you can fit it in with the rest, but also, you just really want to strike while the iron's hot, because you probably you've no idea where you're going to be and how you're going to think in 12 months' time. Other charts come along that you might like even more. It's one of those things that can be a bit tricky. And if it's something that I want to be stitching now is now. Now is not in January 2025. So we'll see what happens. Like, I didn't really need an excuse anyway. He didn't even need to say that. I would have just gone and probably started it anyway. But there you go. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is lovely stitching, by the way, because I've got all this 310 coming down here. And I think, how far is it going down? Probably to about here. And then we start on with these greens and oranges again, and browns. This is nice. This is the perfect stitching for watching television, because you can have one eye on your stitching and one eye on the TV. You don't really need to be paying too much attention to watching your rows, as long as you don't do too many of them without realizing. And because I don't have a grid now, it's much easier to just do an extra row. So I have to be really careful how many rows down I've done. Like if I only have to do 10 here and there's a different color, I have to really make sure I've only done 10 rows and not 11 or 9. It's so easy to do something like that. Gosh, I sound a bit croaky again today. This croakiness is driving me mad. I've been having, which I get quite often, I've been having sinus issues and they drive me nuts. It's just my sinuses get filled up with fluid, or they just get, I don't know what they get, but yeah, they drive me nuts. And there's not an awful lot you can do. Steaming and stuff, and I do all the like general stuff that people say to do. I've had the GP give me meds and stuff, and it's not all the time. It just, I go through phases of it. Sometimes I'm fantastic, I've got no sinus issues, and other times my face is on fire. It just really is so random, very, very random. But I have noticed it linking with the weather. So I don't know about pollen and stuff, but I do know that when the air pressure is low, or when the pressure changes in the weather, my sinuses in my face start to hurt. And then I start to get a full-on headache. And I think that's an issue that some people, that's the sensation that some people are familiar with, is you start to get headache when the weather changes, which is really weird, right? But yeah, your body reacting to the environment. It's just really weird. Anyway, I keep sort of flipping from topic to topic at the moment. So where are we at? I've just nearly reached 10,000 stitches on this, which I can't believe that I've got that many done. But I think it's probably because I've been so consistent with the 200 a day. I think when you're consistent enough, it just, the stitch count ramps up really quickly. So I've been able to do this first thing in the morning, I think, after my tea. And then I get on with my day, doing all the stuff I have to do. And then at late in the evening, or when I watch TV in the evening, I pick out something else, like one of the other goal things that I need to, that I want to, not that I need, take the word need away. One of the other goals that I set that I want to do. And that's been working nicely like that as a sort of rhythm. Because it's so easy to just do these 200 stitches. I have a cup of tea and listening to music on my phone or on my computer, and I just bash out the 200 stitches. Listening to the news, listening to whatever. And then I can just go. And I don't have to think for the rest of the day, oh, I have to do that, I have to do that. It's done. But I appreciate that a lot of people have got different routines and they're not going to be able to stitch first thing in the morning, or it's what suits you, what suits your lifestyle, I guess. Right, how many rows have I done now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm crossing off each row as I go so that I don't do too many. So I will be heading out, but listening to that wind there has just sort of put me off slightly. I really don't like great big gusts of wind, and I do have to be mindful that if the wind is that bad, to make sure that I'm wearing trousers and not wearing skirts, because I have had my fair share of lifetime experiences of going outside with a flared skirt, having a big gust of wind come along, my skirt's gone right up in the air. I have been so embarrassed. Honestly, I am mortified when stuff like that happens. And I don't think other people are as embarrassed as you are when it happens to you. Oh, they might find it slightly bemusing. Just, oh, look at that poor lady, her skirt's gone up. But when it's you that it's happened to, it is mortifying. So I always make sure that I'm not wearing a skirt when it's this windy. Yeah. I learned that lesson many times in the past. And I used to work in a bank which had a uniform. And that uniform consisted of a pleated or plaid skirt, which was very thin nylon. And it was very flared. And it was the ugliest skirt I'd ever seen. And there was a blouse that you'd wear with it. That skirt was not meant to be worn in the winter. But yeah, it was the summer and the winter uniform. And my goodness, the amount of times that skirt used to go flying up like Marilyn Monroe. Every morning I'd walk to work and that skirt would be around my neck. And I don't know, but it was just mortifying. You know, I was just horrified every time. I just didn't know what to do. Some people used to go to work in a pair of jeans or trousers, and then they'd go into the bathroom and they would change it. They would take the skirt off, the trousers off, and they would change to the skirt and then go to their desk. I thought that was very wise of them to do that. And I don't know why, but I just never did it. Yeah, so embarrassing things, right? Not going to happen to me now. In my wiser years, live and learn that I don't do those things anymore. I dress comfortably and I dress for the weather. And I really don't care about the fashion, to be honest. I have never really cared about the fashion. I just wear what I find comfortable. And that's the end of that. Okay, so we're coming up to, this is the 7th row. See, I'd already forgotten. Row 7. So nearly 100 stitches. So that means I've done, why did it say I've done 60 stitches? I've done 7 rows, 10, 20, 30, 40. Oh, of course I haven't marked them off yet. Duh, stupid me. So this will be 70 stitches now. 70 stitches. I don't think I've ever done that many stitches in a stitch with me. for 30 minutes, ever. So that would normally take twice the time, an hour, if you were doing a mix of colours, right? Because you'd have to keep going and changing your threads, which elongates the time it takes to actually finish it. That's 70 stitches, yep, bang on 70. Let's see if we can get to 100. And that would be a great, well actually I've got to do 200 of these, so I'll do my 100 and then I will go off and do a few things. Then I will stitch the rest. But this is a great start, I think, to the morning. I think that wind is calming down for the moment. I think it's that kind of wind that it's calm for the most part. And then you turn a corner and you've had it. It just hits you with a blast. But I know some people have been saying to me that they've been having snow and quite heavy snow and freezing temperatures. And I do feel, you know, so sorry for like people that have to go out and get to work and get to the grocery stores and everything with all that. You know, it's so difficult, especially when you've got young, excuse me, especially when you've got young children. So me complaining about a few gusts of wind sounds very, I don't know, silly. Because I don't think I've ever endured, well, I think there was the one time here in Scotland that we had something called the Beast from the East. And it was very soon after we had arrived in Scotland. So it really put the fear of God in me, because I thought, oh my God, is this going to be like the norm that we have to live with every winter? I think it was we arrived in Scotland in December. I think it was the following December that we got the Beast from the East. And it was just this crazy, like everybody was saying to me here that they'd never seen anything like it in their lives. All the locals were saying they'd never seen anything like it. And it was hilarious, actually, because we moved into a city. I mean, we're talking about a city sort of smaller than London for sure, but a city nonetheless. So tons of high-rise buildings. And you can just visualize what, you know, the main city looks like. And it was hilarious because that snow was so bad, so bad and so thick. You looked out the window and you were, you know, it was almost like a landscape of, like you were in Alaska or something. And you thought to yourself, any minute now, polar bear's just going to come round the corner or up the street. It was just, you couldn't see a building hardly. You couldn't see the cars. You could only see the top windows of the cars because the rest, the snow was so deep. And everybody was pulling out these memes and jokes and everything about it. And I couldn't stop laughing when I saw somebody skiing down the street, because can you imagine someone skiing down a street in London? It was like that. I just thought, what is going on? I must be dreaming. This is ridiculous. And this was the time when everybody was stockpiling. And before, it was the first time I've seen people panic buying. And they were panic buying here in Scotland when that happened, because the trucks, like the traffic came to a standstill. There was no traffic, no cars, no buses, no trains, no trams. The whole city came to standstill. The snow was too thick for anybody to do anything. And it was just uncanny. Even to me that hadn't even lived here before, you know, I thought, this can't be normal. Please, God, don't let this be the norm. I'm going back to the Mediterranean. But no, it didn't last, thankfully, but it was hilarious. The way people were skiing along Princess Street, which is the main high street. Yeah, it was not something you'd expect to see. And the panic buying is the worst, because people do it so quickly. As soon as they get any intuition, any sign at all that there's going to be difficulties for trucks to get in with food items, for anything like that. The first suggestion of it on a radio or TV program, they are out there with their trolleys loading up. And it's really unfair, because you know that there are people who are going to take ages to be able to even get to a store, and that they're going to struggle, and they're not going to be able to. People who don't have transport, they have to go on a bus. There's plenty of elderly people that I've seen hopping onto buses to go and get their food items, and only being able to carry like 4 or 5 things with a walking stick, and then going home again, and then maybe having to go out the next day and getting a few more things. They can only do little tiny shops if they're alone. And then you've got these, fully abled people packing their car to the roofs. And you just think, why are you buying 20 packets of, 20 times 20 rolls of toilet roll? It's just, there's other people in this world too that need things. I just can't really understand that kind of selfishness, but yeah, that is what happened. And some people just went crazy. And how many rows have I done now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right, I should look at my stitch count, because it should tell me here 90 stitches. I only need to do 10 more. Wait, I haven't done 90. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. Have I? I get confused now. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is my 9th row, but it says I've done 90 stitches. So I better stop on this row, because if it's saying I've done 90. Did I already have a row of stitches there when I did this? My goodness, how can I get stuck on a row, on a square of black? How on earth can I get stuck on a row of black? And I can, apparently. Counting wise. To be fair, I feel like I'm going to not work on fabric that's not gridded in future. You might even recommend that. Oh, there's a nice big knot. How do we get this one out? You probably do this too, right? You stick your needle into the knot, take the other end, and you pull a little bit, and that knot will come out. Ta-da! It's like magic, isn't it? Don't ask me to do that again, because I can't. You might have to rewind the video to see how that's done. Yeah, only the gridded. So for this Happy Village piece that I've started, the one that I was intending to start next year, I'm using the 25 count, and I'm doing the 10th stitch. That's my go-to. I know that if I try to get all fancy and do something else, halfway through my first page, I'm going to switch anyway. I'm going to say, well, I kind of like it, but I much prefer X, and I'll end up going back and starting again and doing the 25 count. So for that reason, shut up, woman, and just do the count that you're the happiest with. And I think I'm happiest with 25 gridded, even weave, with my 2 strands tent. That's just, how I've done all my other HAEDs. It's how I started and finished my first HAED, which was the Bewitched by Lisa Parker. That's the one I'm going to do. It's funny though, because I was fully expecting to get some lines, but I don't see lines. And the funny thing is that if you look hard enough, you will see a line, even if there is no line. I said to my husband, do you see any lines? Because I've been quite insistent on having my one page have such a nice neat edge. I said to him, do you see any line here? He said, no, I don't see anything. And I stared at it and I stared at it. And I actually created a friggin' line down the side when there isn't even one there. I don't think there's one. I think you have to try really hard to see one. If you see one, don't tell me. But yeah, I'm sure you might have had that too. You kind of, imagine there's lines because that's what your brain is trying to see. Isn't the brain a spectacular thing? All sorts of shenanigans with our brains. Okay, so my stitch count here is telling me I've done 90 except for this row, so I'm going to recount again after this. Sometimes I feel like I need to go back to school, because if counting to 10 is this difficult, there's obviously a problem. Well, if nothing else, I hope you've been entertained for the last 40 or so minutes. If not, I apologize. Okay, so with that row being struck off, it's saying I have done 100. Park this one here. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And it's saying I've done 90. So had I done 10 of something else before I started stitching? Okay, now I am totally confused. So now I don't know what to do. This is why, guys, this is why Auntie Stitchy Witch recommends that you grid your fabric. Because even the smallest and simplest mathematical sum isn't that easy without a grid. So maybe that row above I hadn't marked off. I thought I had. So why is my pattern keeper saying I've done 100? And if you can count there, please verify. It's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Okay, I'm going to need a couple of hours to figure this out. But I'm not going to keep you here and make you suffer for my inadequacies. So, thank you so much for joining me and my Stitch With Me. And it's been a great laugh, I think, anyway. Yeah, and I will be back again soon, hopefully, to let you know what on earth I've done here. I truly hope I haven't made a mistake somewhere. I doubt I've made any mistake up there. That can't be possible. This all lines up. All of this lines up perfectly. But it's saying I've got 90 stitches here and 100 on my pattern keeper. So, yeah, I'm confused. But maybe I'll carry on this way or do a square here, down here, and see if it matches up with that line. Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll do a square here and finish the square 10 by 10 and see if it matches up with that line, because there's too much black on these two squares. It's just going to be the same as that one. But starting from this stitch, this is a mix. So we'll see what happens. The solution is out there. I just have to go and find it. Okay, guys, I will go and get on with my day, and I will come back another time and stitch with you again. So have a wonderful day wherever you are. Enjoy your stitching, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.